Today I want to talk to you guys about how to deal with customers that don't pay you. This is a question I've had a lot, and I've seen it come up recently, and so I decided to do a video on it. I have a story myself. I have a few stories, but there was one particular time that I got ripped off out of a lot of money, and I kind of want to talk about some of the processes in which you can follow to get paid, but also how you deal with it yourself, because it isn't easy getting ripped off. So, for one, the context. Many farmers and business people alike, when they sell to some customers, be it restaurants, grocery stores, any type of customer you deliver an invoice to and they pay you later, so your payment is what they call on terms, so there's terms and conditions to that payment. Sometimes it's being paid in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, up to 6 weeks. All kinds of terms and conditions there. But this is how anybody who is selling to large-scale type operations is going to be paid, because those types of operations don't have $1,000 cash to give you when you show up. So you're going to be paid on terms. And you're often going to use some kind of accounting system to manage those accounts, to figure out who owes you money and who doesn't. So one thing in the context of restaurants that's really important to understand is that they were actually very notorious for not paying their bills. And anybody in the restaurant business will tell you the same thing. This is nothing new. Restaurants are a high-risk type business to get into, and there are risks to you getting involved in that. And sometimes it's the smallest people that don't get paid. So what's the solution there? Well, the easiest solution is to just deal with customers that pay you on delivery, COD, cash on delivery. That's the easiest thing to do. But you can't do that for everybody. You can't do that for the sort of the larger scale customers where the invoices are, you know, a few $100s to $1,000 per drop off. That's not going to work. It's not going to work for them, right? So you're going to need to start having a terms and conditions or a way of getting paid that goes outside of that. So if you can pick customers that are going to pay you COD, that's the best way to get started. And sometimes if you're selling to restaurants, the best types of restaurants to start with are small owner-operator type restaurants, and they're actually might be more than willing to just pay you COD, because then it's easier for them. They don't have to do any bookkeeping or have an accounts payable accountant or anything like that. It's just easy for them. They just sign a check when you show up, or they pay you cash. And I still have customers today that do that, and they're very ideal customers. But you can't really scale those customers, because they're only buying small amounts. You know, these are invoices that are less than $100 or around that range each time. But if you want to start moving more product, you have to engage either more of those customers, which isn't necessarily easy to do, or you engage larger customers that are going to pay you larger amounts for bigger deliveries. And so that means going on terms. So I had been, in the past, I had been ripped off a few times here and there. And you know, one thing that can happen with selling to customers like this is that they can really only screw you once. So if they don't settle up an invoice, then you stop delivering, right? And you have to be clear about that. This is our policy. If you're not going to pay, then we can't deliver. And if you want us to keep delivering, then you have to pay the last invoice that we delivered or something like that. And you can work those things out. In fact, I had done this myself, where one restaurant I was selling to in the past got really backed up, and they stopped paying. And it wasn't because they wanted to screw me over or they wanted to you know, just do bad business. It was just that costs got out of hand for them. And so I made a deal with them. I said, look, if you can pay me every time I deliver now, pay COD for that invoice, and then you can chip away a little bit at your previous invoices, then we can play ball. And that really worked well for them. So each time I delivered, if I was bringing a $200 drop off, they'd give me $225, and then I would write that $25 coming off the total that they had. So there's ways to work with people like this, and I would always advise doing that than getting aggressive and telling people, hey, you owe me money, screw you, and all this kind of stuff. Try to play ball with them, try to level with them, and just be nice, and know that at the end of the day, if they're buying product from you and they're going to continue to buy product from you, the long term of that is good than letting them go as a customer now. So try to find different ways to work with them than to not work with them. But what happens when they don't pay? What happens when they jump ship or the restaurant shuts down? And these are the risks of selling to restaurants. So a couple years ago now, I was selling to a group of restaurants that were owned by the same group, and they flew like fly by night, let's open 5 restaurants and just go gangbusters. And of course it failed, and which isn't surprising because the restaurant business is incredibly risky. And this is kind of going to be more of a personal story. I'm going to kind of take you through what happened and then what I did to get over it, because I got screwed out of $10,000 on this deal, and it was, as a small business, that's hard to take. And I'm not going to name any names. But so these businesses had been going for it, really going for it. Big invoices, big purchases. I was stoked because I was like, hey, I'm delivering $1,000 of product a week to these couple restaurants. This is great. And they were paying, so checks were coming in, things were looking good. I wasn't really worried about cash flow at that point. And so what happened was that they went bankrupt really quickly, and the whole thing went down. And I had been writing off the checks that they were giving me, they were paying their bills to the best of my knowledge, and all of a sudden I get these NSF charges on my bank account and these statements in the mail saying these checks have bounced and you have to pay the NSF charges, which is like $10 a check. Not a big deal really. But now all this money that you thought you had, you don't have. And you know, it was like, whoa, this came out of left field. What happened here? So I went and talked to the restaurateurs, and you know, it was just as much of a shock to many of them, because the things that the situation in restaurants is often that the people you're talking to in the kitchen, the chefs, the sous chefs, the chef de cuisines, whatnot, they're not the people writing the checks. They're not the people that actually manage the business. So sometimes it's as much of a shock to you as it is to them. And going in there, talking to them, and they're all shocked. Many of them are losing their jobs, and it's, okay, what's going on here? So I'm going to try to consolidate this story down because it is quite long. But basically what I had done is I'd figured out, okay, who do I talk to here? Because I wasn't talking to any of the management. I was just talking to the kitchen people, the chefs and the kitchen staff. So I figured out, okay, who do I have to go? I have to climb my way up the ladder to figure out who to talk to. And I had reached out to them and basically leveled with them as best as I could, trying to be as understanding to their situation as possible, though in the background I'm fumingly pissed off because I'm getting screwed out of a lot of money. And what we did was we tried to work out an arrangement, kind of like what I said with the last one is, okay, I'll keep delivering, but you got to pay me COD for that delivery plus a bit extra each time, and we'll work through it. That way you have product coming into your restaurant so you can stay open, and then I can keep getting paid and keep things moving along on my farm. And so we did that for a while until the whole thing fell apart basically. And at that point it got really messy. And they went out of business, jobs were lost, kitchens were shut down, and I was basically left holding $10,000 of unpaid invoices and product that I'd assembled and put together, so I was out my initial costs as well as the lost sales. And so I had tried to go through collections through the government, small claims court, and the thing with those situations is when a business goes bankrupt, this was at least in my experience and what I found in this whole process, is that the big operators get paid first. The ones that have the most insurance or the most amount of legal muscle behind them, they get paid first, and everybody else gets left holding the bag. And that's what happened to me. So I could have gone through and kept trying to fight it. And when I looked at it at the end of the day, it was actually starting to consume me. It was starting to destroy me from the inside. And the thing that I realized is that not only was I losing money on this, but I was also losing my own state of well-being. And that the loss of this, it wasn't so much the money that was an issue to me, because the farm had done really well that year. I could effectively afford the loss, though I didn't like it, but I could afford it. It wasn't going to put me destitute. And I had to come to grips with the fact that my own personal well-being, my happiness was more important than letting this thing bother me at the end of the day, because it was eating away at me. I was losing sleep. I was waking up pissed off. I was going to sleep pissed off. It was affecting my day-to-day life. And so I basically had to come to grips with that. And I had to let it go, because even when I brought it down to economics, I discovered that on my farm or in my day-to-day life, I'm more effective as a human being, as a productive human being on this planet, when I'm happy and I'm in a good state of being. And I almost crunched the numbers on it. I mean, I couldn't basically give you numbers to say, I make this much money when I'm at this state and this much money when I'm at this state. But that's almost what it was. I found that when I'm angry and I'm pissed off, I'm not as productive. I can't multitask as much. I can't manage the things that I have to manage on a day-to-day basis as effectively as I can when I'm in a good state. And all this comes back to something that I've talked about many times before, is the idea of scarcity mindset and abundant mindset. The scarcity mindset is rooted in fear, hatred, and negative thinking, negative thoughts. And the abundance mindset is rooted in love, well-being, happiness, all those kinds of good things. And so we choose every day where to be. Are we going to be angry, or are we going to be happy? Are we going to be think in scarcity, or are we going to think in abundance? And so this is where abundant thinking completely comes in handy, is that it will allow you to let that thing go, knowing that you as a positive, loving person that's operating at a high frequency is going to create so much more value in so much less time than the money you lost, and that it's so much more worth it to just move on and focus on the good and continue to create more value and abundance in your life. So that's essentially how I got through it. And there's probably going to be more questions and comments about other ways to deal with this. Please leave them below. Happy to answer them. But going back to where I started with this, you've got to have systems in place. And so you got to have systems of understanding who owes you money and who's not. Basic accounting software is a great way to do that, or even just an intelligent way of managing folders on your computer. Unpaid invoices here, paid invoices here is a great way to start. But really listen to your gut. Really pay attention to social cues and the demeanor of people, because in my experience, I'm usually right about my first impressions of people. And anytime I've been screwed over by somebody, I had an inkling of it when I first met them. And so my way of operating now is I trust my instincts, and I'm not afraid to say no to people if I have a bad feeling. Hope you guys have found that helpful. Please hit the subscribe button if you want to see more stuff like that. Like and share these videos with your friends. Check out my website for all my upcoming workshops. I'm teaching on the farm, 5-day workshop on my farm. I'm going to be in New Zealand at the end of this month or the beginning of February, and going to be teaching a series of 5-day workshops in the United States. Got some stuff in Boston. I'm going to be teaching in Victoria. Check it out. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to see you in person. All right, have a great day, guys.